Do you have locks that are thinning even though you hardly ever retwist? Would you believe me if I told you that that was actually the cause of your thinning locks? Well, it could very well be, and if you want to learn how to fix this problem, stay tuned. Welcome to the Atreyu Locs channel, where I discuss everything from lock care to lock repair. If this is your first time clicking on one of my videos, thank you very much, and please consider subscribing. I would love to welcome you into the Atreyu Locs community. Today, we are going to be discussing why some of your locks might be thinning, even though you're hardly ever doing any maintenance. But before we get into it, I'm going to ask you to please hit that like button because it really helps the channel grow, and watch to the end of the video so that you can learn how to repair your thinning locks. So let me first start out by giving you 3 reasons that you could be experiencing thinning locks. The first reason that your locks could be thinning is that it's just due to natural shedding because of the hair growth cycles that each strand of hair undergoes. So once you reach the end of a hair growth cycle for a strand, it dies and it sheds off. And you're always getting new hairs that are dying and being birthed, sprouting from your scalp, if you will. So that's one reason for thinning locks. If you have a lot of strands that are shedding at the same time, then obviously that's going to leave fewer strands on your scalp, and fewer strands lead to thinner locks. If the hair isn't there to go into the lock, then the lock is going to be thinner. The second reason that you could be experiencing thinning locks is because you're doing too much maintenance. You guys have all heard of traction alopecia, where if there is too much tension on your scalp and those strands are being pulled too tightly, you can develop something called traction alopecia, where you essentially kill the follicle. If there's no follicle, there's no hair. The third reason that you could be experiencing thinning locks is because you're doing too little maintenance. Now, this reason is not really known by many people, it seems, because everyone thinks that, hey, if you're giving your scalp and your hair a break, then that's good, because if you're doing too much maintenance and that can lead to thinning, then doing the opposite will quite logically lead to hair growth, right? It'll lead to hair thickening up. But that's not always the case. Many of us suffer from a condition called hair growing away from our locks, which means that as that new growth grows out of your scalp, it is not trained and it does not grow into the locks. So it instead just spreads itself out across your scalp, which is why a lot of times when you haven't done any maintenance, those parts that you once had, they disappear. That new growth that does not grow into your locks is just chilling at the level of the scalp. And because those hairs are not going into your locks, they're not growing into your locks, then that means fewer strands in those locks, which over time means thinning locks. See how it's all related? So now that I've spoken a little bit about what hair that grows away from your locks actually is, I want to say that just because you have hair that grows away from your locks doesn't mean that every single lock on your head will thin out. For me, even though the hair grows away from all of my locks, only 4 to 5 of my locks have really given me a problem over my 6+ years of having locks and have thinned out as a result. If you have hair that grows away from your locks, something that you can do is the braid technique. I've actually made several videos about this, but in this video, I'll show you exactly what to do, how to reincorporate that new growth back into your lock. And actually, if you stay tuned, I'm going to demonstrate in this video as well. So I've given you 3 reasons that your hair could be thinning, and that third reason, doing too little maintenance, that could be a reason if your hair grows away from your locks. I've discussed the braid technique, which is something that can be used to combat this type of thinning. So now all that it's left to do is to show you the braid technique. Let's get to that. You see how the lock is starting to kind of thin out because this new growth is not growing into the lock. So I want to incorporate that back into the lock. So basically I'm going to take this cloud of hair and I'm going to separate it into 3 sections. So just kind of pull and see where I can get those sections. I don't want to pull hair out of the lock if it's already in there, but you know, just gently, okay? Pull and try to get 3 sections. So here's 1. The lock is 1, so that's 2. And then here's another one over here, that's 3. Okay, and now I'm just going to start to braid. So now put that in front and just keep braiding, wrapping it around the other. Keeping 3 sections all the way down until you're done, so you've run out of new growth to braid around the lock. And once you've run out of hair, you can palm roll. You can also take the hairs and just kind of wrap them around the length of the lock like that, all the way down. And then follow that up with palm rolling. And now this hair is braided into the lock and braided back into the lock, and you see how it thickened up, right? I know this is not probably the most intuitive technique, and that's why I left 4 locks out for me to demonstrate. So hopefully you will get the hang of it as you see me do it, you know, 3 more times. Alright guys, so now it is time for me to show you the braid technique. So I just have some distilled water here, and I'm gonna just spray the area. This is the lock, by the way. That is, I mean, like I said, most of my locks have hair that grows away from them. However, not all of my locks thin out. These 2 in the front, they definitely thinned out, and I had to utilize the braid technique. Now, I've said in previous videos that once you do the braid technique, it's not something you have to do often. And I really don't do it often. Like, I can't remember the last time I had to braid this new growth in here, because as you see, it, for the most part, holds on to the hair. But it's the new growth after I haven't reincorporated the old new growth in there. It's the new growth that grows after that. But I have to wait until it's long enough to be able to incorporate into it. So as you can see, it's now long enough where I can start to braid that into the lock, okay? So this is what I mean by hair that grows away from your locks. See how that hair is just chilling there on the scalp? It's not in there, it's not a part of that lock. And then there's a little bit on this side as well, okay? So it's not like the worst lock, it's not like the thinnest lock, because I have already implemented the braid technique, but you know, you still need to do some maintenance every so often. It's been months for me though. All right, so I'm gonna spray it with some distilled water, since I'm gonna be grabbing the hair, just to keep it nice and flexible and malleable, okay? And then I'm going to grab that section over there. That'll be one section, the lock will be another section. And then if there's hair on this side that is not quite attached to the lock, then that'll be the 3rd section. Okay, so I have this section, the lock, and then I have a little bit of hair over here. And basically I'm just going to braid those 3 sections, okay? So you're braiding that new growth around the lock. And that is why, you guys, it will stay in there and why it lasts so long, because you're essentially braiding that free hair into the lock. And because you braided it into the lock, it now has time to lock up with the rest of the lock. So if you look here, I've incorporated that hair that was just chilling there into the lock. There wasn't much on this side, although I did find a little bit, but there was more on this side that's now braided into the lock. I'm not trying to get all those baby hairs there because that could cause traction alopecia, obviously. but I just wanted to get the new growth that had grown long enough for me to braid into the lock. So what that means is sometimes you will have to wait, you know, you can't braid the new growth into the lock every single time you do your maintenance. You need to make sure that the new growth is long enough. Just like you shouldn't retwist every couple of days, right? What are you retwisting? After a couple of days, your hair hasn't grown enough to retwist anything. And most likely, those twists are still in your head. It's been over 3 months since I did my retwist and this hair is still retwisted. Yes, I have new growth, but the hair is still retwisted. So just be smart about it so that you don't develop traction alopecia. And yeah, that's pretty much all that there is to the braid technique. Remember, it's something that you use if your hair grows away from your locks and your locks are thinning as a result. So this is how to fix thinning locks. If you like this video, don't forget to like it and drop down below in the comment section and let me know if you too suffer from hair that grows away from your locks. If so, what do you do? Have you ever heard of the braid technique? Have you had any experience with it? I can tell you it has without a doubt saved my locks. I've still to this day never lost a lock, and I owe it all to the braid technique. You choose to love, do so unconditionally, because loving with conditions conditions the heart to not really love at all. Until next time, peace.